Hello and welcome to LB Presents Unite on Purpose. And yes, I have another incredible person that I am going to be interviewing today, all about how they have been uniting on purpose and building a brand to literally shift an industry. So why are we here? Why are we uniting on purpose? Well, it's all about creating a purpose-driven movement towards unity. It was always my belief that we could literally shift the world into a new era through the eyes of brands and help build brands to shift industries. And over these weeks, I've been interviewing an incredible business owner, founder, CEO of organizations that are all doing impactful things. And today, my special guest and my lovely friend is Guy Robinson. And he is from, yes, the renowned Strutt and Parker. They are one of the biggest estate agency businesses nationally also. And I have had the true pleasure of working with Guy over these coming weeks. And I consider him now to be a lovely dear friend of mine and really doing impactful things in the market. So thank you so much, Guy, for coming on to my show today.
I don't think I've ever been introduced like that before, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. So, Guy, I'm going to kick off and I'm going to ask you, could you tell me a bit about how did you get into, being in this world of the estate business and actually at Strutt and Parker? And Strutt and Parker is a very well-known brand in the industry already. So could you talk to me a bit about, the background and so forth behind that?
Well, I started life as an agricultural teacher back in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
So you didn't know that.
No.
So I've got a farming degree.
Right.
And then was playing a lot of rugby, and my friend had a lot more money. I ended up moving into estate agency. So that's how I fell into it. But I've been doing estate agency for 2 years now. I've always worked out of the sort of Windsor area. So I've worked for 2 big corporate companies, and then 6 years ago, Strutt and Parker invited me to be a partner and join there and head up their residential business in the UK. And to me, it was always one of the premier brands. It was a beautiful old-fashioned partnership where people cared. And having come from a corporate world where you sometimes lose that edge and that kindness, to go back to your roots where people look after each other, I went across to Strutt and Parker, and it's the best 6 years of my working life. I can say that quite honestly, working with fellow like-minded people. In a nice marketplace. We do sell and let and deal with pretty nice property. So that's how I came about it.
And Strutt and Parker has been going since when did Strutt and Parker start?
1865. So Mr. Strutt and obviously Mr. Parker in Essex started life giving advice to farmers. So it started life in the agricultural world. It is very well known in the farming sector. We have 3 sides to Strutt and Parker. One is the commercial side, the other is the rural, and then it's the estate agency side, residential, which I look after. But the DNA and the bedrock of it is the farming side, hence why we manage a lot of farms. We manage a lot of estates, some of the great estates in the UK. We buy and sell farms, and as a consequence of that, we buy and sell houses. We would sell 25% of all the farms in the UK every year. So it has a very decent pedigree. There we go.
Gosh, and you're in 60 offices across the country.
Inverness to Exeter, and then prime central London. So we cross the whole country, yes.
Well, look, when I met you, I had the pleasure of meeting you through my business partner, Darren Sherlaw, who I know you've been a dear friend of for many, many years. And I know that he came and spoke at a few of your different conferences and actually spoke about the L-shaped recession and actually talked about the fact that there was one coming. And I know that you've had many conversations with him about the recession and the pandemic. What has it been like for you going through, because your business has been around for so many years? What's it been like going through a pandemic and a recession in this time?
I mean, in a estate agency world, we all, but most of us live in a house somewhere or a flat, and most of us have had the luxury of either buying or selling one. And some maybe listening might be hoping or coming onto that journey in their life. Historically, over the 30 odd years that I've been doing it, you get some pretty big peaks and troughs. Historically, it's always gone up. I think Darren would probably confirm over 30 years it's probably outstripped in price most asset classes.
Yeah.
So it has a tendency to go up in price because we're a small island with a lot of people and we can't build enough houses. There's only been 1 year since the Second World War we've built enough houses to satisfy demand. So it does go through some turmoils. In 30 years, I've never been locked in my house for 15 weeks and have 50 offices closed. So it was a pretty momentous moment, and it's putting health to one side and people being ill or some passing away. We will look back, I am sure, as an industry, this is a key moment in time, because you do look at yourself very closely and your business. And if you are sensible, you should try and come out of it stronger if you have the capital behind you to do that. And hence, so linking it back to you asking the question about Darren, yes, I have known Darren now for a very long time, and he has spoken at a variety of seminars for me for many years. And yes, he did speak just before we were locked down, predicting an L shape. So yes, he is. He does remind me of that, of course.
I bet he does.
And because he's always been right, I know we're coming out in September 21. That's when it will really kick off. No, he is always a bit of a crux to lean on when things get a bit difficult, just to put some sense in it. And as people look to bosses for answers, they look to me for answers. So I have to go and find them from people like Darren.
Very good answer. Good answer.
And you.
Thank you very much, Guy. Okay, so look, all joking aside, I know that Darren did speak at your conference, and he did actually say, I think he said, we're due one any day soon. And then within, a few weeks or whenever it was, the L-shaped recession hit. You just said that, 60 of your offices closed literally overnight, and everybody went into the houses. And for any business owner, whether you're a recognizable brand in the market, that must be quite terrifying to have to go through something like that, because you do have uncertainty, even though you do know that, with a friend like Darren, that there is a high growth coming in September 2021. But you are still going emotionally through something when that happens. What is that like to be a partner of a business and actually have to take on the responsibility of all that and people's lives?
It was, I look back now, it wasn't much fun the first few weeks because we hadn't learned to do all these sort of things, the technology. I mean, none of us knew what Zoom was, to be honest. And then all these things have evolved, and we then found that actually actually technology can help enormously. And I was very lucky to have a very good team around me. So you've met some of my team, Kate, yes, Louis, Vanessa, and people like that. And they sort of, you see these people stand up to the mark and shoulder some of the challenges. We're lucky enough, Strutt Parker now, to have a parent company in BNP Bank. So, we made a big decision as a group not to furlough. So we had
a decision, actually.
A fantastic decision. Looking back, it was, we hit the ground running, and the market was there when we came back. So we gave our teams something to actually humanly do during lockdown, which was we had a project going called Project Till, which is to contact all our clients, past and present, and re-engage with them. And so when we did come out, we hit the ground running. A bit of a gamble, but it did pay off, and we obviously the loyalty of the teams by not doing it. But as you say, as a boss, it was a worrying time, and we all have budgets, we all have things we have to predict, and being closed for 3 months of the most important months of the year was a worry. looking back, in our industry we've come out okay. Obviously, there's a lot of bumps in the road still to come, and
of course.
you're chatting to me on a day when more announcements have been made. So it's a fluid situation, but you learn a lot about yourself in a recession, or as Darren will say, a depression coming.
Quite. Interestingly, we had the pleasure when everything hit to be able to come together, Bob and Strutt, and actually help you to put on a webinar series that I know in the very early days it was a bit scary for you and your business, because it was something that you hadn't done before, because you said it yourself, Zoom was very different in the very early stages and so forth, and I have to say you were very pioneering in the market and in the industry, not only for the industry but also for the people that were working inside your organization. You stood forward, and you actually got the business around you, and you said, we're going to go this way. And what I was very impressed with, I have to say, is that you went that way, you got your team around you, and you didn't go out with a sales response, which is what you could have done. You actually led with market response, and you talked to your customers, you engaged them loyalty wise, and you actually spoke to them about the trends in the market, what was coming. So would you talk to me about that? Because I know that was very different for an organization. What was the experience of having all your client base coming around you through webinars and so forth?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I did reach out to Darren and yourself for help and advice. And when you're locked down, you have time to reflect, obviously. And, we discovered internally communicating with our teams. I used to drive around the country to see half the teams, or we summoned, we've got 400 staff. You summoned big groups to London for another meeting. And suddenly you realise that the power of technology actually, and people did, our teams suddenly started liking being communicated and seeing my funny face once a week or something on a gathering, and you get nice comments. We see more of you now than we used to, Guy. And you suddenly realise people do really get this. And then, of course, you helped us develop a series with our clients, and you steered us in the direction of putting them into Facebooks, and that paid off. So you suddenly realise that there is a different world out there that you can embrace. And I suppose part of me, it's part of who I am, but having worked for one of the very, very big corporates, there's a big competitor of ours, without giving them any plug. They're bigger than us in the sense they have slightly more offices, and they're a bigger reach. We sell the same type of product. There's 3 agents at our end of the market, the Savills, Knight Frank and us. So they're going to mention. But we always like to be slightly different, and we always like to push the boundaries, because big isn't always the best.
No.
And I think you touched on it. You said, we didn't do it we connected with our audience, our clients, not from a sales perspective, but from a knowledge perspective.
You did.
And we didn't want to do another branded show. We wanted to be human. And I think, we've always looked at ourselves as slightly more of a challenger brand. And that sort of fits my personality anyway. And so you doing this, I'm out of my comfort zone, that.
I do.
Trying to use technology, we were way ahead of our competitors 2 years earlier for doing proper virtual viewings. You walk through a house using a Matterport camera, and we can take that to the next stage now. And that was a godsend in lockdown. We sold houses through that, and others tried to copy by using their phone, but it's a lot more complicated to do it properly. So we always try just to be ahead, because our industry is so archaic. I mean, I do work in a very archaic business. I mean, your knowledge is of the consumer in the high street. My consumer transacts every 10 years. They're not very clued up on what's changed.
I have to say, with your webinar series, because I had the pleasure of being on one with you, and you got me on to talk about consumer societal trends. You got Darren on to talk about the economic commentary and so forth. First off, I was hugely impressed by the amount of people that were on. I mean, you know, on some of them you were having 600-700 people attending the webinars, which was a huge amount of people that were coming on and listening to the commentary. And the second thing was, it was very interesting for me to hear, when I did consumer and societal trends, the perspective that was coming out from your team as well, and how knowledgeable your team were in trends and what was happening in the marketplace. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think it goes back to how we see ourselves. You know, our roots are bedded in partnership. Our roots are bedded in each other. And I don't say that lightly. It's very much true to who we are. And, you know, you often are at Strutt's man and boy from beginning to end. There's plenty of lifers in there who've been their whole career. And so they do take an active interest in what is going on around them. And I suppose when you're an estate agent in a shop, you know, you could be from Ludlow to Inverness to Windsor, you're part of the community. And so knowing what's going on around you and then feeding it back to the top, the trends are quite similar often. Obviously London's slightly different to Inverness, but and you know, Exeter somewhere else. But their knowledge of their own societal behaviour, they take a keen interest. They are pillars of society, a lot of them. I know estate agents get the greatest of praise, but when you are a top estate agent in a town or a local community, you are part of society usually.
So you did another very pioneering thing, Guy. You not only went and ran a series of webinars, I think it was 6. At the same time in lockdown, you brought all of your senior team onto a personal brand program and actually got them to work through their brands and lead with what we would describe as a human response in the marketplace. And it was, you know, a period of time when they were in the houses, you know, and it brought a big form of connection, I felt, on the program every single week. What was it like from an internal perspective for you to do something? Because that was quite different as a business to do something like that.
It was a bit, it was different. It took a bit of persuading to get it off the ground. And then I think the choice of, because I put quite senior people on it to begin with, thinking if they would champion it and pass it down and we would continue more. And some of, you know, changing an old leopard sometimes his spots is not the easiest thing, as you know, because you hosted them. But you did get some pretty good, you know, staid people to really think differently. And you got some of the younger ones to think very quickly. And you even got me to embrace it, which, you know, I've been, you know, doing it for 30 years. And so change is not easy when you get older. So it was quite eye-opening. And I thought you might bring this up. So I looked at my notes before you came.
Well, I would very much like to know, Guy, what really my question to you is, what are you known for, Guy Robinson? What was your personal brand, and how are you looking to impact change in the world for yourself and for Strutt?
Well, as you know, we haven't quite finished the course. So no doubt
because everyone came out of lockdown and the market went crazy.
It went, yeah, I'm sure you'll come on to that again in a minute, but yeah, it did go crazy, and I'm more than happy to talk on that. That's a subject I can talk on. And what am I known for? I'm known for making decisions fairly quickly. I'm known for being fairly brave, but I'm also known, I think, for caring. I do care a lot.
And what do you stand by? What was your piece that you wanted to do for the industry? Do you remember?
At the moment, I want to put the fun back in it. I think the industry, and I mean that, I mean, I say it lightly, but I look back on estate agency. It was very fun many years ago. It's got itself bogged down in compliance, data, all the things that stop me looking after someone like Lindsay Boyd in your most important asset in your life, and helping you move. And I want to be known for working in a business that is in business of moving people, as opposed to selling or letting their house. I mean, that's just a one trick. And I keep saying this, and I've been saying it for years, but actually by doing the personal brand course, of course, if you make me write that down, it makes me live to it more. And I do want to be in the business of moving people, because actually, if you say to me you want to move, and I think you're in Southwest London, and you wanted to move to Oxford because you want more space, but I know you've just moved, so you won't be. But this can take a blooming long time, and that's your life tied up for a long, long time, and it's very precarious. I mean, everyone knows it's stressful because they read about it, but it never changes. So I want to be a challenger brand. I want to put some fun back into estate agency, because it is a fun job. I mean, Jeremy Clarkson once said he had the best job in the world, driving cars. I think I've got the best job in the world, looking at beautiful houses and meeting beautiful people. So I want to be in the business of moving people, and I care passionately about that. And I don't want to put up my clogs without really have challenged my competitors to keep up with change. There you go.
Ooh, good. Okay, right. Now you've brought me on to the future. And we're now in the market, and you're in the business of moving people. And I've got a couple of things that I want to discuss with you in my last 10 minutes. One of the areas is the market is now pumping. Everybody is back out. And I believe that you have never been busier, and the whole of your business is thriving in that regard. Is that the case? Is that what? Yeah.
Without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, what I'm also known for is I do a lot of stats. I boringly read them on a Monday night.
Oh, go on, throw me a few stats. I'm sure Darren will listen to the recording.
Yeah, no,
He'll love a few stats.
He'll love a few stats. Okay, right. Well, we have just gone. If you listen to Rightmove, the market is 5% in volume behind this time last year, which means it's caught up 95% with 3 months closed, and we're only into month 8. We as a business have gone past last year's numbers, and I predicted to the board that we would do that sometime in September, and it happened last week. What does that mean? We must have stolen market share because we came out quickly. An active market, here are some little stats for you. An active market is when you get about 1 to 1.5 applicants registering per month against the properties you have on your books. So take an example. In an Oxford office, we have 50 houses, you get 50 applicants in a month, you've got a pretty steady market.
Yeah.
Coming out of lockdown, we were registering 3 to 4 times the number of applicants. That means if you had 50 houses, you had 200 buyers.
Gosh.
It's stabilised out into the hot spots of the country, which are the Cotswolds, the southwest, the southeast, coastal. So the big migration, and it's stabilising at around 2. Hence why there is an active market, a very active market.
Yeah.
Are we seeing price rises? We probably are at the moment.
I'll have to tell Darren, he did say that on your webinar. He did predict that house prices were going to go up.
Yeah, and I predicted they were going to fall -5%. But every research department predicted the volumes would be half. Normally in the UK, there's about 1.15 million transactions a year. There's a stat for you. Right. And most of the learned research houses, ourselves included, were predicting 700,000 transactions because we were losing a very, very big quarter. They're all wrong.
Gosh, I mean, it's incredible to watch the housing market, I have to say, and what is going on at the moment. If you looked in I'm going to ask you to look in your ball now and let me know, do you think this is going to continue? Do you think it will drop? Do you think with an economic drop that's going to potentially take place at the end of the year with people, governments pulling furlough, that they've been supporting and so forth. Do you think that's going to have an impact on the housing market in the next quarter, or do you think it's going to keep rising? What's your prediction?
Well, we've just come off a webinar just now. So I've had Louis doing London, Kate doing country, me doing the overall, and Vanessa, you've met all 3.
Yes.
So done a live webinar an hour ago to update our audience, and we asked a poll of the audience, and we made it simple, and it was, do you think the reaction in the market, which is now obviously documented and real, is it knee-jerk or legacy? 1/3 said knee-jerk, 2/3 said legacy.
Wow.
I hung before they did the poll, I hung my hat to the mast, and I said, this is going to be legacy. I used your phrase that after a lockdown, it's like a war situation, society never goes back to the way it used to.
Nope.
And I'm old enough to see that is absolutely the truth. This is not going to go back to the way in the way people are buying and selling houses, and when they register and what they're telling you. This is legacy. So some can move now because they've had enough and they're fortunate enough to be able to do it, or just get on with it. Others will be planning this, I am sure, for next year. So I think we've got some steam in it. The question you also asked, will stamp duty, furlough coming off, economic depression,
Yes.
will that affect it? Of course it does. It will take some of the heat out of it.
Yeah.
But it's too hot to continue like this forever. So I think that there's no bad thing, a little bit of heat coming out. I don't wish job losses on anyone. I don't wish depressions on any business and recessions.
Of course.
That will pass. But I think the desire for people to live differently, and that's not people, don't get me wrong, because Louis keeps getting upset about this. This is not people all flying out of London and wanting to live in the country in the Cotswolds. Some people in London will go from a 2-bedroom flat to a 3-bedroom house, or they'll go to something that gives them more space. And some will go to the home counties. The home counties will go to further afield. If you're commuting now, you can commute from York 1 day a week. It's no hardship. So you can live in different parts. So I think the desire to live differently will continue certainly next year.
I'd like to pick up on that in my last few minutes with you, and I really would like to look at the trends coming up of society and actually of your industry, because you touched on a few there, which was what we got a chance to discuss. But I did discuss with you around the world of in the high street, and the fact that retail was just getting and is getting, in fact more so than I even thought potentially myself, is just getting absolutely smashed on the high street. People are closing left, right and centre. And I'd love to know what your thoughts are on the trends of the high street. What are your thoughts are just of the trends in general, of where things are moving to? What does the future look like, Guy?
I won't mind a pound for every time I'm being asked that internally. We have an estate of 50, 60 offices. They're expensive to run. If you don't have a shop in a locality, on the whole, you don't get the instructions, even though I don't really need the shop to sell it. And we learned that in lockdown. When we opened, we didn't open for the first week because what were we going in the offices for? To collect the keys for empty houses.
Absolutely.
We were working from home. But you have to be part of the community, and you have to be part of society. So you have to have some presence. And, I think this is an ongoing. I don't think the high streets, you're an expert, I'm not on this, but the high streets can't disappear.
They won't.
No. So I think, my mindset, and I hope to think you might agree with me, but where we have the bigger, what we call multidisciplined offices, where we have land agents, planners, estate agents, rural experts, we can have offices with 40, 50 people in. And they're often scattered around lots of buildings in a town. I think we should be coming together in one, making it experiential. I can never say that word, but experiential. I think it should offer something different. When you open the doors, a desk beside it. So I think we're going to end up with a blend of experiential big offices, little boutique ones that we have dotted around to be part of a local society. And then I think we'll probably end up, which we are trialing now, where we just have brokers feeding from an area into another. They don't need a physical space. They can work slightly remotely from home. And I think we'll end up with a blend. That's how we see it at the moment. But the shop has to become important again. That's how I see that.
And it was something key that you just said that I just want the viewers to hear. You said part of the community. And one of the key drivers that we discussed was, you know, back to local, being part of the community, but actually really being part of the community. Because something that's happened on the high street was it's been slightly disconnected from the community, if I'm honest, with brands. And there's been big shiny things on the street, and the community hasn't really engaged with retail, and vice versa. It's been a commodity that you've sold, you know, I'll give you something in return. And I think that this whole community sense, and I know you're very passionate about that from the community space, will actually come to life. And I think your true DNA of Struts and what you really stand by, which is holding the community, living with the community, how you engage with the community, will actually come into its own over the coming years.
I think I agree with you totally, and I think that's part of putting the fun back into the job. You know, we did come together with our neighbours, and we did, you know, we picked up shopping for our 90-year-olds next door. You did do things that you suddenly were always too busy. You were commuting 5 days a week. You're all run off your feet. And actually, I think we've had time to reflect. There's a better life out there.
Yeah.
And I think this is the high street in society will be better for it in the long run. Yeah. And the journey of estate agencies should be part of that.
So I'm going to, I saw Boris earlier, and Boris gave me the keys to the country only for the day because he knew that Guy Robinson was going to come and be interviewed on my LB Presents. So I've got the keys and I'm passing them to you. And I would like to say, for one day, Guy, you can unite the country on purpose, on your purpose, around whatever you want to do for 24 hours. Guy, what would you like to do for the world, for your industry and for the world of estate?
For my industry, what would I like?
What would you like to do to unite on purpose, all, you know, everybody in the country for the day? Yeah, around something around your industry, or what you would like to achieve for one day. You've got the keys to the whole of the country.
I would like to put as I said a while ago, put the fun back in being a estate agency for our clients and my teams. And be in that business of moving people a damn sight more easily than we do now. It's a chore, and we need to unblock that. So if I was Boris Johnson, I would look at legislation. I would look at all sorts of things of making, you know, this industry a little bit easier, because it's not that difficult putting someone in love with a house. The rest is the pain around it. So falling in love with a house takes 5 minutes. You spend less time looking at a house than you do at a car.
Thank you very much. And is the stamp duty going to continue with the reduction, do you think, or is he going to put it back in March?
Everyone's talking about that at the moment. According to Vanessa, that it will come off, but who knows? It'll depend on how the economy is faring. I'm sure we've got 6 months to think about that.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it's scheduled to come off. Yes.
Thank you so much, Guy. But I know thank you so much for coming onto the show, letting me interview you. I know that pleasure. You know, I'm always kind of trying to push you and probe you into doing things like this. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for the last question. Didn't see that
You're
one
very
coming.
welcome. And thank you everybody on LB Presents today for coming and tuning in onto the show again. I do get some exceptional business owners, founders, CEOs that are coming onto this show, and they are all part of the Bob Earth community. So if you would like to meet some of these people, then why don't you come and join bobearth.com, and you will meet people flying around the earth, and you can have a conversation with them about building a brand, to shift an industry, to make a positive change in the world. And remember, shh, it's a quiet revolution. Subscribe to the YouTube here now. And tomorrow morning, I am interviewing somebody bright and breezy from Australia, and it will be another LB Presents Uniting on Purpose. See you then.